In today's Top 10s video, we're looking at the top 10 creepiest alien abductions, and in at number 10, it's the Betty and Barney Hill abduction. The abduction of Betty and Barney Hill was the first abduction to ever be reported in the news in 1961. The Hills were driving in rural New Hampshire on the night of September the 19th, returning home from a vacation in Niagara Falls. During this drive, they witnessed bright lights in the night sky. Barney pulled over to get a better look. Using binoculars, the Hills saw an unidentified flying object in the sky moving towards them. Frightened, they jumped back in their car and drove away from the light. As they were driving, they noticed that the lights were chasing the car, and instead of speeding away into the night, Barney decided to pull over again, this time with his binoculars and a gun. This is when he saw some strange beings headed towards him and his wife. After seeing them, Barney finally hightailed it out of there, but this was cut short when the Hills heard a strange sound and became paralyzed by a tingling over their entire body. 35 minutes later, the Hills became aware that something strange had just happened, but couldn't remember what. Barney's shoes were all scratched, and both of their watches were mysteriously broken. Barney did remember driving into a wooded area and meeting 6 humanoid figures who used telepathy to tell him not to be afraid. They were taken out onto a ship and tested like lab rats. The aliens took samples from the Hills, including skin and semen, maybe to use in reproduction. We may never know. Number 9. Whitley Strieber. During the Christmas holiday in 1985, Whitley Strieber, an author known for The Wolfen in 1978 and The Hunger in 1981, was staying with his family in a cabin in upstate New York. During the night, he heard bizarre noises. He decided to go investigate, and this is when Strieber discovered strange beings in his bedroom. After seeing these creatures, he woke up, and in what seemed only like seconds later, he was sitting outside in the woods by the cabin. Baffled by what happened and unable to recollect the events, he hired a hypnotist. After several tries, he was finally able to remember what happened that night. That night, he was levitated out of his room to a ship hovering above the woods. He recalled there being various creatures on the ship, one that looked like a robot, and some were skinny with dark eyes. This is when he remembered the procedures that were performed on him. The creatures put a long needle into his brain and anally probed him. Although many thought him to be hallucinating these events, he swears to this day that these events were, in fact, real. Number 8. The Trucker's Wife Abduction. In Michigan in 2002, trucker Scott Murray received an alarming call from his wife. She explained that she thought she might have been knocked out and possibly raped. Murray rushed home and took his wife to the hospital. The doctors and nurses said that they found no indication that she was raped, but did find a burn on her shoulder. This was when Murray wrapped up the incident as just a nightmare that his wife had had. That was until the next day when he went outside of his home and found weird disc-shaped burns in the grass by their garden. After further investigation, he found a tree 20 feet away with burned leaves on it. This was when he knew something strange had happened there the night before. After the discovery, Murray took his wife to see a hypnotic regression specialist. This was where she remembered being on a spacecraft and began to recall the tests that were performed on her. This caused Murray's wife to become paranoid and frightened. Murray later found his wife dead after returning from a trip. Wanting answers, Murray took samples of the grass to the local college, who told them that it was just radiation burns. To this day, Scott Murray does not know the truth about his wife's death. Number 7. Antonio Villas Boas abduction. In 1957, 23-year-old Brazilian farmer Antonio Villas Boas was working late in the field. While working in the fields, he noticed a red light in the night sky. This light started to move towards him and grow larger. This was when he noticed that the light was an oval shape and that the top part of it was spinning. This is when the UFO landed in the field. Boas jumped on his tractor to escape, but it stopped working shortly after he turned it on, so he began to run. This was when one of the aliens, dressed in a helmet and coveralls, grabbed him. 3 others came to help the alien and put Boas in their ship. They were also dressed in coveralls and had creepy blue eyes. After entering the ship, he was stripped of his clothes and covered in a type of gel. The creatures took blood samples, and then a female creature appeared and began to have sexual intercourse with him. After she was finished, she patted his stomach and pointed into the air as if to tell him that she would have his baby in space. When Boas was being released from the ship, he tried to take something off the ship as proof of his abduction, but was then thrown off. He went on to become a lawyer, and still swears this story is true. Number 6. Buff Ledge abduction. In 1969 at Buff Ledge summer camp in Vermont, 2 teenage employees, known as Michael and Janet in the reports, were sitting on the dock enjoying the sunset late one afternoon when a bright light filled the sky. They watched as the light drew closer to them. As they watched, 3 smaller lights broke off from the big light and began to dart over the lake. One of the little lights fell into the water. A few minutes went by, then the light shot up and started flying towards them. As the lights began to get closer, Michael yelled at the light, and suddenly they were floating. Seconds later, the two were back on the dock and the lights were gone. Neither talked about what had happened. Over the years, Michael became obsessed with finding out what happened to him. He went to a hypnotist who helped him remember. This is where he recalled the ship and having samples being taken from him. He remembered the aliens had large eyes and 3 fingers on each hand that were webbed. After remembering all that had happened to him, Michael contacted Janet, and she described the same story as Michael. Number 5. The Allagash Abduction. In Maine in 1976, artists Jack and Jim Weiner, along with friends Charlie Foltz and Chuck Rack, were doing some night fishing when the men noticed bright objects flying in the sky. One of the lights started to move towards the canoe. Frightened by this, the men started to hastily paddle back to the shore. Before the men could reach it, a beam of light engulfed the canoe. The men woke up later sitting on the shore by the fire, which was almost completely out. When the men got home, they experienced nightmares of being poked and prodded by the aliens. All 4 men underwent hypnosis to remember the events. This is where they remembered being tested and having bodily fluids removed from them. Even though the men got separate sessions, all of their stories were exactly the same. Since the men were artists, they were able to sketch the room, aliens, and tools used on them from their memories. Number 4. Sergeant Charles L. Moody's abduction. In 1975, in the Alamogordo Desert in New Mexico, the site of the recent recovery of the lost Atari video game Burial, where all the lost ET games and consoles were found, Sergeant Moody was watching a meteor shower when he saw a spherical metal object in the sky, hovering only a few hundred meters away from him. The object began to come towards him, so he began to run to his car. Once in the car, it wouldn't start. When he looked at the object again, he could see that there were human shapes in the window of it watching him, and he heard a loud, high-pitched sound and felt paralyzed as he watched it fly away. Moody was able to get his car started and went home, but was astonished to see that it was 3 in the morning, meaning that he had an hour and a half of time unaccounted for. Days after the incident, Moody broke out in a rash and experienced back pain. Using self-hypnosis, Moody was able to fill the gaps of time that he lost. He remembered 2 tall creatures approach him after becoming numb. He recalled trying to fight them, but blacked out. This is when he woke up in the craft on the table, telepathically being asked by one of the creatures if he would consent to behave, and he agreed. The creatures gave him a tour of the craft and told him they would return in 2 decades. Number 3. The Manhattan Abduction. In 1989 in New York, Linda Napolitano was abducted from her apartment. This abduction had multiple eyewitness accounts. On November the 30th, around 3 in the morning, Napolitano was abducted. She had no idea what happened after the abduction, but through hypnosis was also able to put the pieces together. She soon remembered that 3 grey aliens levitated her out of her window to a ship. 2 bodyguards of United Nations statesman Javier Perez de Cula witnessed this abduction. Gent Kimball also witnessed it, but chalked it up to a movie being filmed in the area. Napolitano hired UFO researcher Bud Hopkins to investigate, but couldn't get Cuella to tell the public about what happened that night. This is one of the only UFO abductions to be witnessed by so many people, but never fully investigated. Number 2. Dr. Herbert Hopkins. What if the men in black are real and out there to protect the secrets of the galaxy? Dr. Herbert Hopkins found out the hard way that this might just be the truth. Although Hopkins was not abducted, he did have a run-in with a strange person that didn't want him investigating an abduction. In 1976, Hopkins was hired to consult on a case in Maine as a doctor and hypnotist. While alone at his home one evening, he got a call from a man in the New Jersey UFO Research Organization, informing him that he wanted to talk to him about the case. Hopkins agreed and went outside to turn on the light so the man could find his house, but before he could even step outside, there was a man walking up his porch stairs. He was dressed in a black suit and hat. Once he removed the hat, he says the man was completely hairless. His skin was almost transparent until Hopkins noticed that the man was wearing lipstick. The man entered the house and they discussed the case, but something occurred that scared Hopkins as they were talking. The man showed him a coin and made it disappear and then told Hopkins, "Neither you or anyone else on this planet will ever see that coin again." This terrified Hopkins, so as the man requested, he got rid of the tapes and the hypnosis sessions and stopped working on the case. After some research, he discovered that there was not a New Jersey UFO research organization. Spooky. Number 1. The Peter Curry Abductions. In 1973, Peter Curry moved to Australia and met his beautiful wife Vivian. In February of 1988, strange things began to occur. The couple started to see weird lights in the sky, but it wasn't until that summer in July that Peter had his first terrifying experience. Peter was lying in bed when he felt a sudden jolt on his ankle. This caused Peter to become paralyzed but conscious, which is when he realized there were 4 hooded silhouettes standing next to his bed. They told him telepathically that it would be over fast and then raised a long needle to his head, and then he blacked out. His next encounter didn't occur until 1992. Peter woke up in his bed to find 2 naked female creatures sitting on his bed. They looked human in almost every aspect, but their eyes were twice the size of humans. The one with blonde hair grabbed him and pushed his face into her chest. The female was strong, and Peter tried to escape her grasp. When he finally caught his breath from the struggle, they were gone. This is when he found 2 blonde hairs wrapped around his genitals. He removed them and put them in a bag for further research. The hairs were examined by scientists, who determined them to appear human but had 5 different DNA markers, which is associated with Mongolians. Although nothing has been found since then, the Physical Evidence Group is still looking for answers about the strange female humanoid in Peter's room that night. So I really hope you enjoyed that video, and I'd love to know what you think of it, so please leave a comment below. I'm also going to link over to another video that you might enjoy, so just click on that thumbnail on the screen now, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we put out a new video 7 days a week, and you can also visit us online. Just go to top10s.net. Thanks for watching.